colleagues in big cities and liberal states, Joe Biden has zero plan for law and order. He has actually no plan to improve policing or quell tensions in the country. In fact, he's attending a high-dollar fundraiser tonight, headlined by defund the police activist John Legend, you know, the singer guy. But the biggest concern is still Biden's fitness for office. Joe can barely leave his basement, can barely utter 2 sentences without, well, acting confused and confounded. And today was no different than every other day they asked to talk for more than, well, 1 minute. Take a look.
The failure to respond to the pandemic, I think the federal government has abdicated any effective leadership role. The White House, at least, has abdicated that role. You know, the rapidly rising I don't know, his just inability to focus on any federal responsibility.
Okay, I don't think that's how you're supposed to wear a mask, Joe. Just saying on the side. These people are sick.
Now, maybe you've noticed what I've noticed. When they know the cameras are rolling, most Democrats will go to great lengths to say how much they care about black people. Yet weekend after weekend of horrific killings of African Americans in Chicago, and nary a peep from them. No demands that leadership be improved, that cases be solved, that murder charges be filed. No visits to family members usually, and why? Because there's no political leverage in those situations, that's why. Instead, the same folks who complained about President Trump's walk across Lafayette Park pretend to show how much they empathize by just producing silly political theater. Yesterday, the moment was so rife with emotion that one congresswoman used the occasion to check her cell phone. See her in the back? And not only did the entire Democrat Party ditch social distancing over the past few weeks, now their leaders are totally fine with cultural misappropriation. Look at Nancy there. When proposals to bring back jobs are what we need, all they have are props. It's so insulting, and beyond that, it's just embarrassing. And how utterly ineffective. Disadvantaged communities have been drowning in liberal rhetoric for years. But what are the results?
Three minutes and 37 seconds.
Hi friends, I'm usually either too busy or too lazy to make this kind of quick video response. But today something happened and I thought it's actually important enough that I get in front of my camera and make a short video to explain something short enough for me to post on Twitter. I was just looking online today like most of you, and what did I see? A bunch of Democrat politicians kneeling down, of which I have nothing to say about that because I am not an American. However, they were all having around their necks this colorful fabric, which I'm sure they put around their necks as some kind of mark or show of unity or solidarity with black people. So in other words, they are putting forward the campaign material or this colorful fabric they had around their necks as some kind of placating sign or symbol to show that they are not racist and they are together with black people. Excuse me, dear Democrats, in your tokenism, you didn't wait to find out that this thing that you're hanging around your neck is not just some African uniform. It's actually the kente material. The kente belongs to the Ghanaian people, mainly the Ashanti tribe. Excuse me, Democrats. Don't treat Africans like we're children. these fabrics and these, colorful things that we have within our culture and tradition, they all mean something to us. I know you look at us and you say, oh, Africans, you're so cute in all your colorful dresses. Well, some of those dresses and patterns and colors and fabrics actually do mean something to us. Some of them belong to ancient tribes and mean something to them. So why are you using it as your own show of non-racism or your own show of virtue? Why are you using the kente material to signal your virtue? Stop it. We are not children. Africans are not children. And leave our tradition and our culture to us. And if you don't know much about it, ask somebody. I'm sure there would have been something else you could have done to show your solidarity with black people, instead of taking the kente material and making a little show of it.
But we do think it's worth, for a minute, taking a pause to assess whether or not they were in fact lying to us about the coronavirus and our response to it. And the short answer is this: yes, they were definitely lying. As a matter of public health, we can say conclusively the lockdowns were not necessary. In fact, we can prove that, and here's the most powerful evidence. States that never locked down at all, states where people were allowed to live like Americans and not cower indoors alone, in the end turned out no worse than states that had mandatory quarantines, the state you probably live in. The states that did lock down at first but were quick to reopen have not seen explosions of coronavirus cases. All of this is the opposite of what they said would happen, with great confidence. The media predicted mass death at places like Lake of the Ozarks and Ocean City, Maryland, places where the middle class dares to vacation. But those deaths never happened. In the end, the Wuhan coronavirus turned out to be a dangerous disease, but a manageable disease like so many others. Far more dangerous were the lockdowns themselves. For example, in New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Massachusetts, panicked and incompetent governors forced nursing homes to accept infected coronavirus patients.
These people are sick.
And as a result, many thousands died, and they died needlessly. This is all a remarkable story, but it's going almost entirely uncovered. The media would rather tell you why you need to hate your neighbor for the color of his skin. The media definitely don't want to revisit what they were saying just a few weeks ago, when they were acting as press agents for power-drunk Democratic politicians. Back then, news anchors were ordering you to stop asking questions and obey.
All right, so while most Americans are staying inside, or should be, right, if they're not out protesting like fools, they're not happy about being told to stay home. Staying home saves lives. And the rest of us should be staying at home for our mothers and the people that we love, and to keep us farther apart will ultimately bring us closer together in this cause. Our collective, conscientious actions. Staying home.
Oh, if you love your mother, you will do what I say. Turns out cable news anchors don't make very subtle propagandists. And then Memorial Day arrived in May, and some states started to reopen. Millions of grateful Americans headed outdoors for the first time in months. And the media attacked them for doing that, called them killers. Swimming with your kids, they told us, was tantamount to mass murder.
Jam-packed pool parties at the Lake of the Ozarks Resort and other places over the holiday weekend. Few, if any, people were wearing masks or practicing social distancing, hardly.
Packed into overcrowded pools despite the ongoing pandemic. Let's face it, the weirdness of being that bunched up in what looks like a kind of human stew.
Frankly, a lot of the people in those crowds, they thought they were, standing up for what the president believes in. And that is not to care about the public safety part of this.
Look at this. I mean, it's kind of crazy considering we're in the middle of a global pandemic. I mean, as one person quipped, that's curving the curve. That's not flattening it.
A massive crowd of people crammed together as if it were just an ordinary holiday weekend, despite the risks of a virus that has killed more than 98,000 people.
How dare you?
Shame on you.
Boy, that montage was the opposite of a Mensa meeting. Has that much dumbness been captured on tape ever? The last clip you saw was from May 25th. That was just over 2 weeks ago. 98,000 people are dead. How dare you leave your house? You don't work in the media. You're not essential. But it didn't take long for that message to change completely. In fact, it took precisely 5 days. Here's the same brain-dead news anchor you just saw less than a week later. He's no longer angry, you'll notice, about Americans going outside. As long as they are rioting and burning and not doing something sinful like toying with their children, he's delighted by it.
And let's not forget, if anyone is judging this, I'm not judging this, I'm just wondering what is going on, because we were supposed to figure out this experiment a long time ago. Our country was started because this is how the Boston Tea Party, rioting. So do not get it twisted and think that, oh, this is something that has never happened before, and then this is so terrible, and where are we, and these savages and all of that. This is how this country was started.
All these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by God. You know the thing.
Yeah, don't judge. This is how this country was started, by looting CVS and setting fire to Wendy's. Of course, you took American history. You knew that. Andrew Cuomo's brother must have been in the same history class because he had the same reaction.
America's major cities are filled with people demanding this country become more fair, more just. And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful, because I can show you that outraged citizens are the ones who have made America what she is and led to any major milestones. They're here to yell, criticize, blame, and shame. Citizens have no duty to check their outrage.
We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts.
Wow. So 1 minute they were mass murderers for going outside. Now they're Sam Adams. They're patriots. They're American heroes. If all of this seems like a pretty abrupt pivot, fret not. Rioting is not a health risk. As long as it helps the Democratic Party's prospects in the November election, rioting will not spread the coronavirus. Sounds implausible, but we can be certain of that, because last week hundreds of self-described public health officials signed a letter saying so. They announced that the Black Lives Matter riots are a vital contribution to public health. In effect, they're an essential medical procedure. But that doesn't mean you get to go outside. You don't. Thanks to coronavirus, you do not have the right to resume your life. And if you complain about that, it's, quote, white nationalism. That was their professional conclusion. Does a single American believe any of that? No, of course not. It is too stupid even for CNN to repeat, so they mostly ignored it. That's an ominous sign if you think about it. It means these people are done trying to convince you, even to fool you.
Fool me once. Shame on you. If fool me, can't get fooled again.
They're not making arguments, they're issuing decrees. They think they can. They no longer believe they need your consent to make big decisions, to run the country. Once the authorities stop trying to change your mind, even by deceit, it means they've decided to use force, and they have. During the lockdowns, people whose loved ones died were not allowed to have funerals for them. Think about that. It's hard to think of anything crueler, but it happened to a lot of people. They claimed it was necessary. It was not necessary. And we know that because now that a man has died whose death is politically useful to the Democratic Party, the authorities have given him 3 funerals and not a word about a health risk. Or consider King County, Washington. That's where Seattle is. Restaurants in King County are operating at just 25% capacity. That's the law now. Non-essential businesses are allowed just 15% capacity. The effect of that is economic disaster. Most small businesses run on very small margins. They can't survive for long, and in fact, many have failed. What should they do? They should join Antifa, obviously, because in King County, Washington, Antifa can do whatever Antifa wants to do. Tonight, they've taken over an entire 6-block section of downtown Seattle. And that's fine with health authorities. There's no social distancing required. They're essential. You getting the picture? Is this adding up to a message? Yes. The message is, you were played. We were all played. Corrupt politicians scared us into giving up control over the most basic questions in our own lives. At the same time, they gave more power to their obedient followers, like Antifa, while keeping the rest of us trapped at home and censored online. In other words, they used a public health emergency to subvert democracy and install themselves as monarchs. How were they able to do this? The sad truth is they did it because we let them do it. We believed them, therefore we obeyed them. If there's anything good to come out of this disaster, it's that none of us will ever make that mistake again.
Get fooled, we can't get fooled again.
2 weeks ago, you were unable to have a funeral. Your mom, your dad, your grandma died. They couldn't have a funeral. And if you did try to have a funeral, you could have been arrested. You fast forward 2 weeks later, you turn on the television and there's a giant funeral, a giant memorial for George Floyd. Celebrities and politicians all there. The same people for the past couple months who were telling you if you were to go into a group of people, you could have died because of COVID-19. And here they sit at this giant funeral. A funeral in which George Floyd probably only knew 1/3 of the people actually there. A funeral in which became political. Al Sharpton was up there saying, we're going to take the White House. George Floyd's funeral became political. 2 to 3 days after that man was murdered, they told you to go vote. A week after that man was murdered, first day of primaries. And what did you do? You went out and voted. Blue, 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 just like the script told you to. Hashtag vote, 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 all over Instagram, all over Twitter. Everybody, vote, 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 vote. Why? Have you asked yourself why? What is voting going to do? We had a black president and this still happened. You think voting is going to solve racism? You're being used. You think they broadcasted George Floyd's funeral all to America because they wanted to show what a great person George Floyd was? Or do you think they broadcasted George Floyd's funeral because they wanted you to watch? So you would get angry, you would get sad, you would get mad, you would get frustrated, and you would go vote.
A new wave of coronavirus cases possibly triggering another lockdown.
Coronavirus cases spiking in states across the country. Is Texas already experiencing a second wave?
Many experts warn a second wave of infections is ahead if states relax the rules too aggressively.
Especially in areas where President Trump might do rallies. I mean, the idea that the media are really worried about a second wave is just laughable. They just spent the last 2 weeks condoning, celebrating, marching themselves in protests across the country, and they told us that racism was the real health crisis in the United States. So these aren't serious people, and they shouldn't be treated seriously. Now, what does the data actually say? Yes, there has been an increase in COVID-positive cases in some states, but that's a pretty meaningless metric given that we're doing way more testing now. What's really important is the number of hospitalizations and ICU beds. For example, the media breathlessly covered the 1,902 COVID cases reported in Florida today. It's a record, they screamed. But the data shows that Florida hospitalizations have been trending downward for 2 weeks. That's great news. Hospitalizations are increasing in Texas, which is concerning, but the media are treating the state like it's another New York, which, as you can see, is just ludicrous, not the case at all. Now, Arizona has also grabbed the media's attention. They reported over 1,600 new cases today. But guess how many Arizonans were hospitalized for COVID on Wednesday? 1. Yes, that's right. 1 person in a state of over 7 million people.
Mr. President, you've been nothing short of historic for Black America. I don't say that because I have to, because I can say whatever I want to say as a free citizen here in the U.S. You've been nothing short of historical. Criminal justice reform was historical. We were getting locked up at unprecedented rates. You undid the 1994 crime bill, and we are forever thankful for that. Even the opportunity zones. We can be critical of a lot of things, but the opportunity zones incentivize the people that have money to put the money where we need it most, which are in these urban and rural neighborhoods. HBCUs, the hope if I go down to thing after thing.
1977, Biden worried that his children would grow up in a, quote, racial, his words, jungle if integration is not done in a, quote, orderly way, whatever that means. And in 1993, he referred to inner city youth as, quote, predators on our streets. And he co-authored a very aggressive crime bill. Well, that ramped up prison sentences for dozens of crimes. We've got the video evidence, the videotape. Let's go to it.
It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask, what made them do this? They must be taken off the street. We should focus on them now, not out of a liberal instinct for love, brother, and humanity, although I think that's a good instinct, but for simple, pragmatic reasons. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets.
Let's continue. When the crime bill became law, Biden was so proud of his accomplishment, he bragged, quote, the liberal wing of the Democratic Party is now for 60 new death penalties, 70 enhanced penalties, 100,000 new cops, 125,000 new state prison cells. This is the same guy that pretended to be a civil rights leader for years. After all, in 1987, well, he lied about marching in the civil rights protests. More recently, he lied about getting arrested by the apartheid South African government while on his way to see Nelson Mandela. A few weeks ago, he lied about his many political endorsements from the NAACP. They don't endorse, they never endorsed him. And by the way, what did he do to fix systemic racism? Okay, it was under Barack and Joe's watch. Ferguson happened. Baltimore happened. Cambridge Police happened. Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman happened. That was when he was vice president. So what did he do to fix the systematic racism in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s? In other words, does this what we're about to play you sound like a man who's particularly worried about racism to you? You decide. Take a look.
The largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
What kind of a chance would a northeastern liberal like Joe Biden stand in the South?
Better than anybody else. You don't know my state. My state was a slave state. My state is a border state. My state is the 8th largest black population in the country. You got the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a story. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Oh, we can keep going. First, mainstream African-American, first one who's articulate, bright, and clean. This is a storybook. What? Believe it or not, his rhetoric has actually gotten much worse. A few weeks ago, Biden told radio host Charlemagne the God the following. You decide.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Pretty obvious why Biden spends most of his days hiding in his basements. Democrats are now being caught on tape. They don't want anyone to actually see the real Joe Biden, the lying, the weird statements, the racial rhetoric, the constant confusion. Question America's going to have to ask and answer in 146 days. Is Joe Biden fit to serve as the commander-in-chief and the president of the United States? Does he have the mental alertness, the stamina, the strength to take on what is the hardest job in the world? Is he up for the job? What's going to happen when he finally has to leave his basement bunker? Now, even longtime Clinton hack Terry McCullough, he wants Biden to stay in the basement. Let's keep him in the basement as long as possible, out of the spotlight. Keep him in the basement. Keep him there. He does a couple of calls a day. He's good. Take a look.
People say all the time, oh, we got to get the vice president out of the basement. He's fine in the basement. 2 people see him a day. He's 2 body people. That's it. And let Trump keep doing what Trump's doing. It's hard for the vice president to break through.
There's a whole new strategy for winning the office of president. Hide in your basement. Quite a statement. At some point before November, yep, the forgetful Joe Biden will be forced to actually leave the basement and campaign and debate. And even Biden's closest supporters are nervous. Tonight, the hypocrisy in the Democratic Party has never been worse. While many call for the removal of Confederate monuments around the country, Democrats, well, they're totally silent on the skeletons in their own closet. Let's take a look at Nancy Pelosi. Well, it was her father who oversaw the dedication of 2 Confederate monuments in Baltimore, Maryland. Will she now disavow the actions of her very own father? So far, not a word. By the way, nor has the media mob dared to even ask that question. Meanwhile, you might know this, the Russell Senate building is named after a noted Democratic segregationist. Will Senate Democrats now demand that it be renamed? Do they even care? After all, one of the top Democrats in the Senate was none other than Robert Byrd. Yeah, he was the former poobah of, like, the Ku Klux Klan. That guy. We refer to him as Robert KKK Byrd on this show. 2010, Hillary Clinton, she called Robert KKK Byrd her friend and her mentor. Take a look.
Today, our country has lost a true American original, my friend and mentor, Robert C. Byrd. Senator Byrd was a man of surpassing eloquence and nobility.
These people are sick. Imagine if Donald Trump had said that about somebody like Byrd. Of course, the presumptive Democratic nominee, the forgetful Joe Biden, he revered Robert KKK Byrd also, even eulogized the former Klansman during a memorial service. Let's watch.
Although I and my colleagues behind me revere the Senate, Robert C. Byrd elevated the Senate. Well, if there was ever a senator who was the embodiment of his state, if there's ever a senator who, in fact, reflected his state, it was Robert C. Byrd. He was fiercely devoted, as you've all heard, to his principles. Even once he became power, he always spoke truth to power, standing up for the people he proudly was part of.
These people are sick. Actually refreshing to see the ever-forgetful Joe get out a few sentences without, well, stumbling all over them.
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Now, there have been so many gaffes by Sleepy Joe, 30330. We now have to, on this program, introduce a new recurring segment just to try to keep up. It's not going to be easy, and it will feature the Biden blunders of the week. Take a look.
Have you ever considered what would happen if the election results came out as you being the winner and Trump refused to leave?
Yes, I have, and I was so damn proud. You have 4 chiefs of staff coming out and ripping the skin off of Trump. And you have so many rank and file military personnel saying, whoa, we're not a military state. This is not who we are. I promise you, I'm absolutely convinced they will escort him from the White House with great dispatch.
These people are sick. All right, military will escort him out of the White House. No wonder former DNC Chairman Terry McAuliffe said, I'm fine with him in the basement. He sees 2 people a day. It's body people. Take a look.
People say all the time, we got to get the vice president out of the basement. He's fine in the basement. 2 people see him a day, his 2 body people. That's that. And let Trump keep doing what Trump's doing. It's hard for the vice president to break through.
I'm fine. Leave him in the basement. There's 2 people that see him all day. It's body people. The president had a pointed response to the ever-forgetful Joe Biden's claims that the president wants to steal the election. The next witch hunt. It's on its way. And he wouldn't leave the White House if he was defeated. In an interview earlier with our own Harris Faulkner that aired today. Take a look.
Look, Joe's not all there. Everybody knows it. And it's sad when you look at it and you see it. You see it for yourself. He's created his own sanctuary city in the basement of wherever he is. And he doesn't come out. And certainly if I don't win, I don't win. I mean, I go on and do other things. I think it would be a very sad thing for our country.
Yeah, it's sad. Compassionate president. Here's more of Biden's blunders. Take a look.
The failure to respond to the pandemic, I think the federal government has abdicated any effective leadership role. The White House, at least, has abdicated that role. You know, the rapidly rising I don't know, it's just inability to focus on any federal responsibility.
Oh.
I got a bone to pick with this whole Donald Trump don't like black people all of a sudden thing, you know, in the midst of all of this mayhem. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he would have never, ever been on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he wouldn't have appeared in Bobby Brown's music video. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he would have never, ever hung out with Muhammad Ali and Rosa Parks. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he would not have gotten an award from Jesse Jackson about how much he is appreciated in the black community. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, him and Al Sharpton wouldn't be taking photographs of him, you know, with his arm around, thumbs up and whatever and whatnot. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he would have never had a black girlfriend. He would have never had a black girlfriend if he didn't like black people. You listen to what I'm saying. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, he sure in the hell when they got them three bastards, remember them three boys they got caught stealing over in China, whatever, whatnot, he would have told them lock their ass up, they deserve to go to jail. If Donald Trump didn't like black people, as far as I'm concerned, he liked black people more than some black people like black people. Everybody on The Apprentice that won was black.
Senator, I'm sure that you would agree that your service in the Senate up to this point has not reflected any particular concern for the larger contributor.
Well, the fortunate thing is I didn't have many larger contributors, and the only reason, see, I went to the big guys for the money. I was ready to prostitute myself in the manner in which I talked about it, but what happened was they said, come back when you're 40, son, and so I had to go out. I had to go to a number of small contributors.
Well, I think we're all grateful, Senator, you didn't take no for an answer. Senator, aren't you a living example?
I am an anachronism. I am a 29-year-old oddball. The only reason I was able to raise the money is I was able to have a national constituency to run for office. Because I was 29, I'm like the token black or the token woman. I was the token young person.
We're talking about this national constituency. Some of the money that...
That's not an announcement for office, by the way.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black,